What is that feeling like to leave prison? And after that, why would you ever go back?
That was a very happy day because my wife was waiting outside. I hadn't gotten parole. My sentence was cut short by a judge. So I learned at noon that I would be free that night at 5 o'clock, and the paperwork could be done. And man, I couldn't pack fast enough. I shed a few tears with some of the guys inside, tears of joy, but also concern for them. And had some prayer with some of the inmates and had my bags packed, and my wife was at that front gate, barbed wire fence, and I went through it rejoicing. I mean, my feet weren't even hitting the ground. A great feeling, like you've been confined. Toughest thing about prison is you're just not in control of your life. You do what you're told 24 hours a day. Stay where you stay. Counts by your bunk. So freedom is the way we're made, and to be free, wow. But I did look back once, and I saw a lot of the guys hanging on the fence looking at me, and that was one of those images in my life that haunt you, and you want to come back and see those guys, because I guess I really knew they were depending on me. Many of them were, because maybe I could speak for them, because they hadn't had a chance to speak for themselves. So I remember that day vividly.
That was excellent. You spoke about a Russian guy, and I don't remember his first name, that had been in the Gulag.
Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn?
Can you talk about that a little bit? And it seemed like there was some correlations there.
Well, one of the influences on my life, I love Russian literature, but one of the influences on my life has been Aleksandr Solzhenitsyn. He was a heroic figure to me. He had the courage to oppose Stalin. It ended up with him spending 10 years in prison. He wrote a book about the Gulag, One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, which was smuggled out of the Soviet Union, widely read in the West. Of course, when he got out of prison, he read the Gulag. He wrote the Gulag Archipelago, which is a 3-volume set of all of his experiences in prison. He wrote some great novels, and I became a Solzhenitsyn fan when he gave his Nobel speech after being released from prison. I guess I became a Solzhenitsyn fan before that, well before the Soviet Union fell, and because he had the courage to stand up for truth. He was converted actually in prison. I mean, that was the fulfillment of his spiritual experience, where he really came face to face with Christ. He was a powerful influence on me because his writing was so powerful from the prison about freedom and about the decline of the West. And then when he was released from prison, he was visiting Washington, and the president wouldn't see him because he was a contentious figure with our relationships with the Soviet Union. But what I appreciated, I think, that sticks out of my mind, I read it once a year, was his commencement address at Harvard, 1978, when he was out of prison and touring in the West. And he said the West will decline because it lacks civic courage. And he absolutely diagnosed the condition of the West brilliantly. So I've been a great fan of his writing and his messages, and his life, his literature. One of the most powerful men of art of the 20th century.
He said something about how, and I think it correlates with your story, but he spoke about being in the Gulag and how it was, in a way, the best thing that ever happened to him.
Oh, yeah.
Do you recall that?
Yeah. He talked about it being the most important experience in his life. He said, lying there on the rotting prison straw, I realized that the object of life is not prosperity as we are made to believe, but the maturing of the soul. And those words, when he wrote them, I could identify so much with what he said. He also said the line between good and evil passes not between principalities and powers, but through every human heart that oscillates back and forth, which to me, was a very powerful explanation of original sin in terms everybody can understand. Certainly true. He captured so much in his literature that's true about life and reality. And his Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich describes prison life like no one's ever described it. So he is a heroic figure in my eyes. Really influenced me.